Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Next up, we have the ArtCenter College of Design from the US. They're going to present radical sensing, super smelling neuroprosthetic. Hold on to your seats now.
Yeah. Good job. The USB?
You have to plug a USB for this.
Where's Hi. I'm Selwa Swaydan. Is the mic on? Yeah.
My name is Jay Hong.
And we're from ArtCenter College of Design's Graduate Media Design Practices program. So instead of seeing disability as something to fix, our professor's brief was to invert disability and design for a superpower. Radical sensing is rooted in the sense of smell. And radical sensing imagines a future in which we've chosen to replace our noses with a super smelling neuroprosthetic or a post nose. It filters, it shares, and it remembers scent.
The super smelling neuroprosthetic amplifies, isolates, and records scent through hand gestures and customization to your post nose.
For centuries, scholars have placed smell at the bottom of a hierarchy of senses. Condillac, Darwin, and Kant, they've all described the sense of smell as the least useful of the senses.
But we chose scent.
Yeah, we chose scent as a way to really design for the emotive, non-rational, intuitive aspects of brain computing. And really, thanks to brain scanning imaging technology, the hegemonic divide between what we know and what we don't know, and the rational collapse thanks to this. So here we see a scan, going back a little forward.
Oh.
Here we are. Here we see a scan of the olfactory pathways in the brain. And really, the sense of smell is actually the most complex of the senses because of how it functions and how it's mapped through the brain. So we spoke to experts in computational neurology, anaplastology, brain-computer interface hardware development, and also we collaborated with an independent perfumer.
These are our 3D noses. We imagine fitting them to a person's face once their noses are removed. So it is a radical idea. So why not a radical prosthetic?
So for example, this one is inspired by techno. This is our techno nose. And here we have our sleeping nose to protect you while you sleep. And this one challenges the architecture of the nose.
So what does it mean for the replacement of the body part to become aspirational?
So currently, there is no neuroprosthetics for smell. So how do you design for something that doesn't exist? This led us to the idea of working with performers. And by performers, we mean those with specialized training in movement and dance.
Radical sensing is in dialogue to this performer and body researchers. Second to the left is Lucy McCrae, who works with boundaries of human body and dynamism of technology.
So there are clear advantages to working with performers.
Their spatial vocabulary allows for rich messaging and interpretation in a very collaborative manner. It is a symbolic and a metaphoric process. It turns formal movement into narrative, which then we work off.
So we created this methodology, which we started calling performative prototyping. And instead of being a narrowing process, it is very divergent and generative. And this allowed us to really work with concepts that don't exist.
Over time, we made working prototypes, and these were used for our performative prototyping iterations.
And these iterations led to these 3 areas. So GCMS is a technology used by the perfume industry and scientists to analyze and measure scent. ENO's technology takes us to a portable scale. So if you imagine that this could merge with the neuroprosthetics of the nose, this would be a huge change in the way we could record and store scent. This is how memory works. And based on this technology, we here are showing 2 performers recording and sharing scent.
To begin, we conducted 3 scent tests with a diverse group of performers. We were interested in the relationship between language to smell. And so we asked the performers to verbalize their reactions.
So that led us to think, would a smell memory device facilitate a richer discourse around smell? And would that lead to a smell literacy?
To move on to augmented function, we tested stereo smell. We asked the performers to do improvisation through long extended straws, which then made us think about control.
So initially our questions were, what does it mean to augment smell to be more precise or focused or enhanced? But later our questions became about, what does it mean to relinquish control of smell, both willingly or unwillingly?
This led us to sharing. This test is about the sharing dynamic between leader and follower.
And we took this idea of sharing and intimacy to the extreme by giving the performers a very restrictive prototype, which they described as painful.
We repeated the test with performers who knew each other very well. And they were able to be it was less challenging for them, and they were able to move more quickly.
So since they were moving so much more confidently, it led us to consider, how does familiarity affect ability?
And during our debrief, they mentioned about the synchronization of breath, for them to move easily.
Yeah, and then through this, it allowed us to consider, could the breath be used as a cue in sharing of smell?
So to recap, we used the methodology of performative prototyping to reach to these 3 areas.
With memory, how does a smell memory device impact the language around discourse and smell literacy? With control, what does it mean to design for an ability to control or relinquish control of smell? And finally, with sharing, what does sensorial consensus mean? Can we use the breath to facilitate consensus?
We took a radical approach to look into the future, to explore designing possibility around superpower and ability.
In the process, we came up with a methodology that we're calling performative prototyping, which led us in a different direction than if we had taken a more conventional approach. Radical sensing looks at neuroscience, physical computing, and performance research to really explore the potentials of designing around a radical augmentation of smell and also a radical prosthetic. Radical sensing imagines a future in which we've chosen to replace our noses with a super-smelling neuroprosthetic or a post nose. Thank you.
Thank you, Art Center. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, where do you start? It's a wonderful project, and I commend you on taking the approach of looking at augmentation of powers, superpowers, and sort of exploring this from a very different sort of starting point. The performative prototyping, I think, is absolute genius, and I think the video communication storytelling that you do in this presentation is like amazing, right? I mean, you're just doing there's all sorts of storytelling going on about what you've explored and how you explored it. And I'm left very much with the impression that, you know, perhaps not as radically as you suggest in this incredibly bizarre moment where, you know, we see this void in the nose cavity. But just the idea that there could be devices that, you know, enhance or give us superpowers of smell or recall or, as you said, record and share. There's something definitely super exciting there, and I'm compelled to imagine a future in where, you know, we have the a heightened sense of smell and be able to share those incredible moments. But anyway, just very bold, very creative. Great job.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the subject matter is fascinating, right? Especially when you're exploring memory as it pertains to smell. This is something I've always been very curious about. I find my sense of smell fluctuates different times in my life. You know, it's more vibrant. Other times it's lasts different months. And so, you know, the result here could be really, really fascinating. And this seems like one of those projects that really starts to contribute to a base of knowledge that we're going to need to get there. I really just like the presentation, I think, and the project and the work, and to sort of be you for a second, because you know, there's a lot of art in this. There's a lot of exploration in this. There's a lot of creativity in it, and it's a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, and so that's very, very exciting. So you know, what resulted in its practical applications here, I don't know, but the step, I think, is really exciting to see. Great presentation. Thank you.
Yep, echo those. I love the way that you kind of went way out, but kind of that forced you to really think about some of the things, and actually, you know, what would that be like? And I think that's something that, you know, for some of the other projects, I think that, you know, kind of would have been really helpful. Like, what would it be like to wear this? What would it be like to use it, to be that, to have that as part of my daily life? You know, if I capture a smell and I give it to somebody else, what's that going to be like? I mean, those are really interesting questions to think about. And the way that you did it was incredibly evocative. And I think that was great. You know, so very kind of a different way of doing that. And you know, so I really enjoyed that. And, you know, and taking just a complete departure of what did it mean to sort of reverse that feel of a, you know, contextual disability. Well, could you, you know, being differently abled, as it was called for a long time, you know, actually, yeah, be differently abled. Have it like super nose is kind of a really different way of thinking about it. So I thought that was a great project. Really liked it.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from the audience? Stella?
So thank you very much for your presentation. And so here I own up. I am someone with this invisible disability of having mostly no sense of smell. And what I love about your project is that it actually shows things that I do. For example, when I go for a walk together with my husband, he tells me, now it smells of grass. And I go, oh, is it really? And then I'm going, okay, maybe I can smell just a little bit of it. So I try to go. So actually what this is one of the behaviors that you showed in your movies. And so what I think is really nice about it is that it's beyond the product, because actually it enables me to recognize that this is something that we're doing and I can talk about it. So it's actually a direct mediator of experiences without a product, in the sense that I'm using a product, but actually it enables people to share experiences. So I love that.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'd love to talk to you more.
Any more questions? Clay Shirky?
The performative prototyping idea seems seems to even transcend your project, just as a general technique. As you guys were doing that, did you think, oh, I know what else this would be useful for? Like, when would you use that again, or for what other kinds of projects?
Thank you, and that's a really good question. I think we've been meditating on it or trying to understand, but I guess it started when we took a dance choreographic practice I have and applied it to some design research, and I found it to be a very satisfying experience. But I think, at least from my perspective at this moment, I see it as really applying to brief creation and maybe insight finding when the space is very broad. I think kind of how we talked about it, when you're really open and you need to be led down a different path. But besides that, it's just really fun. Yeah. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah.
Unless somebody else has a question. Okay, so back to Clay's point. I mean, there are some earlier work around sort of informants and some early papers around that. But I think that's always been using the kind of performance to tell the idea much more than, that sort of prototyping and using those performance and dancers to kind of, because as you say, so good with thinking their bodies. So I thought that, very much so that was a great idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much, Art Center.
Have the whole table?
Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.